What's up, YouTube? This is BB with Casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Coming at you guys with a deck profile. Now, I know this is probably the least casual deck that I have ever built, and that you'll probably see on this channel, but it's technically tier 2 right now, so close enough, I guess. But let's get into it. So first off, I do play Metaltron at 1. This was mostly to replace Masterpiece being banned because he was way too good. Metaltron, not so good, requires 3 tributes, but for every type of card, spell, trap, monster, he can become immune to those kind of card effects. And if he's destroyed, you get to special summon I think it's anything that's not a light or dark monster from your extra deck. You just get to special summon it out. I don't run an extra deck with this though, but that's something to consider if you happen to try to run this card. He's pretty cool. No, he's a pretty cool card. I really like his art. That's really the main reason why I run him, because I just think he's cool. Next, we run 1 Dynamite. I only run 1 because you can only run 1 because he's limited. He's probably the best card in the deck. So, as with all the true Dracos, if you're unfamiliar with them, you can tribute a spell or trap card in order to summon them out, in order to kind of circumvent the tribute summoning. Kind of like, I guess, similar to kind of how Monarchs had their own ways of getting around having to tribute summon things. They have their own way of getting around it. A little bit stronger way, but that's another story. So for him, whenever your opponent activates a card effect, you can search your deck for a True Draco trap card and either activate it directly onto the field or add it to your hand. And so that's really good because, I mean, you get to activate a trap card directly from your deck. So just being able to gain that kind of free advantage is just always really good. And then we run our triple Ignis Heat. So he's same thing, but he searches out spell cards instead. You run 3 because, I mean, you want to get to your spell cards as quickly as possible because of how much advantage they can net you. For mainly just drawing cards, recycling cards, things like that.
He was limited before, right?
Yes, he was limited up until this last ban list. In fact, he was banned and he was limited. And so when they banned Masterpiece, they brought him back to 1 and they brought him back to 3. The main reason for that is because if you have him banned and you have Masterpiece banned and he's limited, the deck is basically unplayable. Like, it is just absolute trash. Like, at that point, it would be like skimming tier 2 if it made it to tier 2. Now for Majesty, she searches a monster, but I only run 2, and the reason for that is because I just don't feel like you need more than 2. I used to run 3, but honestly, without not having, I feel like 3 is better if you have Masterpiece, but since searching out your monsters, it doesn't feel as important now. So I just run her at 2. Also alongside her, I run 2 Mariamnes. People used to run this card, not so much anymore mainly because of hand traps can stop her really easily, because Droll is really popular right now. Ash Blossom's always been popular, but if you do something like you have Diagram and use Diagram to blow her up, you get to search a card off of Diagram, and then you get to search a monster off of Mariamne. So that's pretty good, but having 2 monsters that search other monsters is already pretty good, so it's another reason why I don't feel like Majesty needs to be at more than 3. Or, sorry, more than 2. I also run one Driath. So I like him just as an mainly as an option because when he's on the field, uh, he makes it so that your other True Draco monsters can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects except for himself. So he's 2800 defense, so you typically are going to tribute him out in defense mode, which if you tribute them out with their effects of being able to tribute a spell or trap, they're always face up, so you can actually tribute summon them in face up defense mode. If you tribute a monster just normally, they would have to go face down. So do keep that in mind. Um, his other effect is if he is. It's been a while since I've actually used this deck, so I'll have to remind myself exactly how it works. If his face up tribute summoned monster, by the way, they always have to be tribute summoned monsters. If you summon them by any other way, they won't have their effects. So if he leaves the field, you can special summon a True Draco or True King monster from your deck in defense position. So this is just a good way of getting cards kind of out of your deck onto the field and being able to just kind of keep getting advantage. But mind you, if it's special summoned from the deck, that monster won't have its effects. So you might do something like, or they won't have their like tribute summoned effects. They'll have their effects, but like she can't search monsters, he can't search spells, and he can't search trap cards because they're not tribute summoned monsters. You can summon out like Miriamne or something like that, pop her with Diagram, and then go into some additional plays. But I really like him just for protection. I do run 2 Ghost Ogres in here. That's really, I mean, you can, if you want to run hand traps, you can run any combination of them. For what I do, I mostly rely on trap cards because this is a demise build. So I just keep it at 2 ogres. I like Ghost Ogre. I know that against like current meta and things like that right now, you want to run things like, you know, an Ash Blossom, a Veiler. Like Veiler is a little bit better than Ghost Ogre right now, but this is what I like to run, and I don't really, even though this is a rather decently competitive deck, this is just how I like to play it.
Decent?
Yes, decent.
Okay.
Decent. No more than decent.
Right.
I mean, this deck hasn't done anything for a while. That's definitely hyper casual. Table 500.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got triple Diagram. Diagram is incredibly broken. So, in all honesty, I think that Diagram was probably a better contender to get banned than Masterpiece, in my opinion, because I think that Masterpiece is manageable unless your opponent has Diagram. Diagram is just kind of what makes the deck tick, which you might be wondering, then why the hell do you only run 2 Terraforming? I just don't feel like you need more than 2. It's still 5 copies of the card, and with how much this deck draws and searches things out and deck thins, I don't think it's needed. I mean, you can definitely run 3 Terraforming, it's not a bad idea, but for my personal preference, I like 2. So, Diagram, if you don't know, Diagram can destroy 1 card from your hand or your field to search any True Draco or True King card. Monster, spell, trap, doesn't matter. And then any True Draco or True Kings that are on the field get an extra 300 attack and defense, and the first time they would be destroyed by battle, they are not destroyed. That effect, I think, is I feel like is the most overlooked, because that's the one that just always makes it so difficult to get over anything in True Draco, and it's what really, in my opinion, it's what makes the boards just really, really powerful. And of course, the searchability that it gives, like if your opponent is able to just continually out the card, it makes it really, really difficult to keep up. Next, we have 3 True Draco Heritage. So, Heritage, both of the spell cards have it's the same effect of you can get an additional tribute summon for a True Draco monster during your main phase. So if you have both spells on the field, you can essentially get 2 additional normal summons that turn. So for this one, if you, for every type of card, True Draco card that has left the field, you get to draw 1 card for each of those. So you can draw a maximum of 3. That is hard once per turn. You cannot do that with the other ones if you have multiple copies. Most of the effects on these are hard once per turn. Additionally, if the spell cards go, or if they leave the field, if they're sent to the graveyard, I think it's just if they leave the field, you get to destroy 1 spell or trap your opponent controls. Likewise, the trap cards destroy a monster if they leave the field. Let me see if it. I think it's. If it's sent from the spell and trap card zone to the graveyard. So if you banish them, they don't get that effect. Which is why cards like what's that removal spell that banishes?
Cosmic Cyclone.
Cosmic Cyclone. Pay 1,000, banish a spell or trap card. Really good card against this deck. Next, I played 2 Disciples. I feel like people kind of sleep on this card a lot. I like it because what it does is you pick 3 True Draco spells or traps. Spell trap or monsters, just 3 True Draco True King cards in your graveyard. Shuffle them back in the deck and then draw 1 card. So the ability to recur cards is just really, really good. And because you're constantly popping things, tributing things, all of that, you need to be able to get your cards back. If you lose both of these, you are in a very, very bad situation. Next up, we run 1 True King's Return because it's limited, because this card is busted. So this card has, it's got 2 effects. One of them is going to be that you can tribute during your opponent's main phase. It has to be for a True Draco monster, of course. The other effect is you can special summon a True Draco or True King monster from your graveyard. I think it has to be in defense position. Yeah, defense position. But for the rest of the turn, you can't special summon. That's not really a big deal. This deck doesn't really special summon. So this card is insane. One of the things that you can do is if you run... I can't remember the full name, but it's that trap card that's like Waterfall something.
Waterfall of Dragon Souls?
Yeah, Waterfall of Dragon Souls.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that card lets you contribute your worm monsters and then draw cards +1. I think it's like +1 equal to that. So what you can do is you can use this card, keep special summoning them out every turn. You just special summon them back out, and then you use that to tribute them off and draw a bunch of cards. I don't run that in this build of the deck. I used to run it, and I used to do that. It's really, really good. If Diagram ever gets banned, that is a very good alternative. And then we have True Draco Apocalypse. The only difference between this card and True King's Return is that its first effect is you can choose one. You can target one of your other True Draco cards, destroy it, and then all monsters your opponent controls, their attack power is cut in half. That is a permanent effect, and so you can just continually stack that on. So if your opponent has something that's really powerful, you can just keep doing that every turn until it's, weak enough to destroy. Normally you wouldn't necessarily run 3 of that, but you need as many of the trap. You kind of have to max out on the trap cards. So that's it for the True Draco cards. Next we have Card of Demise. Card of Demise is great because you can empty out your hands super, super easily, and then you don't special summon, and so you pretty much just free draw power. Always remember though, your opponent doesn't take any battle damage. That is probably the one thing I forget the most. I run 1 Regeki and 1 Dark Hole because board clears are good.
But why Regeki?
Because it's Regeki.
Okay.
I run 1 Monarch Stormforth just because everything's a tribute monster. So being able to tribute your opponent's cards and get over basically anything is really good. Next we run 3 Monarch's Erupt. So this is basically skill drain, but it only affects your opponent because all of your monsters are tribute summoned. So as long as you have all of your tribute summoned monsters are still have their effect, anything that's not a tribute summoned monster, they have their effects negated. However, if you don't control any tribute summoned monsters, keep in mind this card is sent to the graveyard during the end phase of that turn.
Is that a hollow?
Yes, it is.
Because originally it was a common, right, out of the structure deck?
Yes. This was, looks like Mega Pack 15. I guess the original printing must have been a super rare.
Yeah, it might have been printed as some pack, and then they reprinted it in the structure deck as a common. Yeah, you might be right.
And then we run 1 Solemn Judgment, 1 Solemn Warning, and then we run 2 Solemn Strikes, because traps are pretty good. So I don't feel like Solemn Brigade really needs much of any explaining. It's solemn. Negate stuff constantly. Negates for days.
Rejected.
And then we run, for the last card, we run 1 Imperial Order. So Imperial Order is the most fair thing in this deck imaginable, especially ever since they made it so that the effect is mandatory. You have to pay 700 life points during both players' standby phases. The main thing that makes this totally fair is that Tree Dracos, they don't have a stipulation on what kind of cards you contribute. It just has to be a continuous spell or a continuous trap card, whether it's face up or face down for some reason. So Imperial Order, you can basically sit there and say, you can't play spell cards, and then whenever I say, I need to use spell cards now, you can just tribute this away, and then you can just freely play spell cards again. Now, you only get that once, so, play it wisely. But odds are, whenever that time comes, you probably already won the game. So that is my deck profile. That is easily the most hyper casual table 500 deck I've got. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe.